Hey and welcome to another tutorial. I'm a 7-year challenger, X3 times rank 1, and I also competed in the LEC, and in this video we'll be going over some core Caitlyn gameplay mechanics to help you master this champion. Don't worry, no fancy looking combos that only work in practice tool. First of all, what kinds of champions is Caitlyn best into? Usually, the less range the enemy team has, the better. Bruisers, for example, struggle the most against Caitlyn. Keep watching and you'll understand why. Here are some examples of the champions that Caitlyn stomps really hard. This is because of Caitlyn's range and her ability to auto-space the enemies, get push and bully them under tower, as well as kite them with E and place traps in ways that make it really hard for them to play the game. If you are curious as to how to auto-space, give a watch to my Ashe tutorial where I go in depth on auto-spacing. Caitlyn Q. As Caitlyn, you actually want to position yourself near the bushes during laning phase, simply because if any fight breaks out, you might want to quickly step into the bush for passive stacks. However, since we're always near the bush, what we want to do is whenever we are looking to Q, we can go in and out of the bush to quickly hide our ability cast so enemy has no time to react because they don't see the channel. Also note, if enemy steps on your trap, you always Q first and then auto for two reasons. First, your Q will be a guaranteed hit. If you Q after auto, they might be able to dodge it. And second, your headshot auto fires immediately, giving you more DPS. Caitlyn W. Actually, trap placement is what makes or breaks a good Caitlyn, so I recommend you pay close attention. The first recommended trap placement is in auto-pathing locations. Those are locations such as these, and why they are so effective is because many times enemy will simply run into these because their character is choosing this autopath. Just like in this clip where I will place a trap in an autopathing location, and as you can see Yorick goes right through it but has too much movement speed thanks to the teleport, and the trap isn't active yet. Somehow he manages to step right back into it though. Another important concept is essentially the extending of the terrain. You can use your traps in a way to create a very narrow choke point, such like in this clip. This one is probably my favorite and most popular use case of this, and as you can see, with only 2 traps we can create a wall just like this. Now, the enemy's only option to farm is to position himself up here, which is where I also position myself to poke him when he goes for last hits. One of my other favorite ones is to pinch the enemy like this. This worked twice in the same game. This one is very repeatable as I guarantee you enemies try to go in between the tower in pretty much every game. Similarly, in this next clip, I will place a trap behind Bard to cut off his escape path, and then a trap where I predict he might portal to. The reason why I mentioned Caitlyn is really good against bruisers is that you can actually make yourself impossible to get on. If you place trap underneath yourself and then kite the enemy around your traps. Let me show you an example.
Rock hard. Bryce, somewhere I'm not walking into this.
This also works really well against champions like Lee Sin, Jarvan, etc. with enough practice. Another important detail which I see many people miss is to make sure that you are sitting on full W stacks as little time as possible. This way you get way more traps out on the map. Just put a random trap somewhere. Predicting your teammates' crowd control. Most champs you're going to play with on bot lane are not Morgana and only have 1 second CC, some of them being hook champs. The key here is to place the trap pretty much the second your teammates fires the crowd control skill shot and not wait till it hits and then place it, simply because 1 second CCs are way too short for your trap to connect. Let's recap how this might work in practice. In this clip, my first trap is trying to connect with Nautilus hook and auto attack, but I'm too late. The second trap I place is to extend the tower wall and also in his auto-pathing, and the final trap when Rakan engages will be below me because I can see him commit with his W. If you are fighting in an open area and there are no CC teammates nearby, make sure to put a trap down in between your autos where you think the enemy might click. As you can see in these fights, I will unload all of my traps, because why not? During laning, make sure before placing a trap in the bush that you actually place it from within a bush, so that enemy doesn't see that you put it there. Small detail, but huge potential win. Your traps also give you vision, so if you need vision on the enemy, you can also W for vision. Caitlyn E. So, We all know the most common Caitlyn E plus Q combo at this point. However, you can also choose to do the E plus trap, placing the trap where you think the enemy will step next. If the enemy steps on the trap, you get a huge payout because you also get to hit Q afterwards. However, if the trap doesn't connect, then you miss out on dealing damage with Q, which is most of the times a guaranteed hit. For that reason, I recommend doing the E plus W whenever you are running out and can't afford the Q due to the cast time, for example like here. I see that the enemy is engaging on me and I use E, however I could have used E plus W because the W cast time is super fast and will be executed in the E animation. The other E mechanic that I find super useful and actually impactful in many of my games is the E flash. And I really think everyone who plays Caitlyn should have this ready, as there are so many fights where this will be your finishing move to guarantee a kill. Basically, all you have to do is press E first and then flash immediately. This gets really easy after a few practice goes in Practice Tool. Your ultimate. Not much to say here, other than to not be afraid to use it off cooldown on enemy squishes for poke. I think many people get too caught up in the fantasy of keeping it post teamfight to get a kill, but theoretically speaking it has more value if the enemy is entering the fight lower HP, simply because when they're chunked already at the start of the fight, they're not going to be able to fight as well as they could if they were full HP. For builds and runes, do refer to this video where I discuss the current Caitlyn builds and runes. There are some other things that you could potentially do, but they're so rare and hard to execute that I don't even ever use them, except for like maybe 1 out of 100 games where it just happens, so it's not gonna be in the video. And yeah, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Peace.